Hello ladies, gentlemen, and my NB friends. Welcome back to the Keldian channel. I'm your host Keldian, and recently I made a video talking about Persona 3. When I made that video, the only version that I had experience with was Persona 3 FES, and obviously I judged the game based on that version. Well, with the re-release of the recent Persona games on modern consoles, now I have experience with Persona 3 Portable, a game that seems to cause endless bickering by randos on Twitter. Persona 3 Portable, as the name suggests, was the version that was released on the PSP here in 2010 in the States. It takes the Persona 3 game, adds in a few features from FES, and attempts to modernize other aspects to make it feel more akin to Persona 4. But due to the hardware limitations of the PSP, some things were stripped down, some things were cut, and it has led to a lot of people online arguing about which version of Persona 3 is the definitive one. Well, as someone that has never played Portable, I didn't want to write it off completely. I had heard about some of the changes but didn't know a whole lot regarding the game. Obviously it's Persona 3, but what all had changed? Well, now that I've played it myself, I figured I could take some time to sit down here and talk about the changes between the versions. Some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like, and overall decide which version I'd want to play again. That said, I am not reviewing every aspect of this game. It is more or less works as a follow-up to my last version where I do a quick overview and look at Persona 3. If you want my full context as to how I feel about this game, then I encourage you to watch that video first. However, if you are someone new to Persona 3 and don't wish to be spoiled, then know that I won't be including spoilers in this video, but I did have spoilers in my previous one. So, yeah, look out, I guess. Before we address the elephant in the room, let's go over the most important element of any video game first, the gameplay. I know anyone watching this that knows about Portable is probably wanting me to bitch and complain about the butchered visual presentation, but let's be honest here, if a game just isn't fun to play, then what's the point of touching the game in the first place? Well, I'm pleased to say that the gameplay of Persona 3 Portable is a huge step up from FES, in some regards. My biggest complaint in the Persona 3 video was how various aspects of the game would culminate to make a very RNG heavy experience that toys with the player. This becomes a problem when you miss your attack all attack, your AI controlled teammates pick useless moves, your current skills can potentially put you in a dangerous spot that can't always be alleviated by the other factors in play. It's not overly difficult because it's actually difficult, it's challenging because the game fucks with you. Well, in Persona 3 Portable, it really cuts down on those RNG elements and delivers a much more enjoyable experience in my opinion. The first major element that is cut is how the player couldn't control their full party in the original Persona 3. While in Portable, the player can now control their party members in full. No more hoping that the party uses the correct moves, now you get to choose what moves they make, which gives the player full control over the situation. This is a really good thing, no more Marin Karin spam, now Mitsuru can actually be useful in battle. The next thing I want to mention is another RNG element that has been trimmed, which is how an attack all attack doesn't grant a 1 more if all enemies aren't knocked off balance. Portable takes another page out of Persona 4's book and makes it so even if an attack all attack misses one enemy, the attacker is still granted a 1 more. While one could sit here and argue about how the old system was perfect, I'm not going to. I see no reasonable benefits to the old way whatsoever. Another massive improvement is that your party members no longer get tired just from exploring Tartarus. They'll be tired the next day if you spent too much time in Tartarus, but that night of exploration isn't ruined by you just wanting to play the game. Words cannot describe just how happy I am that this was changed. Keeping on with the neat changes, in Persona 3 FES, if you went to a base floor of Tartarus, you instantly restored HP and SP. This could allow the player to rush to a boss floor, teleport to the hub, and regain all the health they lost, then return to the grinding with no issues. While one could argue that this was an exploit, it was one that I was fully willing to take advantage of, and I did plenty of times. In Portable, they make it so returning to the hub doesn't restore your HP and SP. However, they did add another function to the save clock that allows you to pay your money to restore to your party instead. This is the perfect balance to accommodate the change. Give players a way to restore their party, but lock it behind a paywall. If they run out of items, their only option is to use an access point to delay their progress in exchange for healing, or to risk it and push forward to the next boss floor that lets them travel both ways. Persona 3 Portable does add skill cards to the game, which allows you to teach any skill to your personas. This is a lovely feature that I simply adored in the later games. I'm so glad to see it back here in any capacity. I've always loved being free to customize and build my team however I see fit, so just having a hint of that is so great. Not to mention the Inari at the Naganaki Shrine allows the player to duplicate their skill cards. While the execution of this feature isn't perfect, I do like having the option to do such regardless. And real quick, I just want to mention that I thought all of these changes and additions would break the game and make it insanely easy. And while it does make some of the boss fights easier, I found the general difficulty of Persona 3 Portable to still be rough compared to Persona 4 and Persona 5. While I think most of my deaths in Persona 3 FES are caused by those classic RNG screw you moments, all deaths I experienced while playing Portable are caused by the enemy AI being able to exploit the same gameplay changes that the game introduces. One such exploit is spamming attack all moves and getting those one mores to stack on top of one another. Another thing is that downed enemies act like they do in Persona 4, meaning that the turn they get up is the turn that they'll attack, no more wasting whole turns just to recover. So if you can't cause dizziness to the enemy and keep it still, it'll get up and has a chance to deal some real damage depending on what it is. Persona 3 was a difficult game that was made worse by the obnoxious elements. Get rid of those horrible aspects and you're just left with a somewhat medium-hard experience. It's by no means frustrating or overly difficult as long as you know what you're doing, but it's not completely brainless experience like Persona 5 tends to be. No game is without its flaws, however. Persona 3 Portable, believe it or not, does fumble in a few ways. The first gameplay addition that really just rubs me the wrong way are the Tartarus rescue requests. While one could argue that they're optional, I always feel some obligation to do them. Not to mention that characters with social links could be one of the people that need rescued, so if you fail to save them, you lose your chance to finish that social link. Other rescue requests will give you money and skill cards, so there's always a pretty good incentive to get in there. So what's the problem, you're probably wondering? Well, the problem lies in the execution and the practicality of achieving the request. Some mornings, the Velvet Room attendant will call your cell phone and say, yeah, there's someone trapped in Tartarus, go save them, lol. But the problem is that they need to be rescued on weird floors that are in between the boss floors. What I mean is that you cannot go down floors in Tartarus, only up. So if someone needs to be rescued on floor 83 and the closest teleporters are 72 and 85, then you have to select 72 and climb up 11 floors just to get to that target. This job of trying to get this one person took me about 20 minutes on stream. Rescue requests are a diversion that have good incentives, but they overall just get annoying and break up the flow. The other issues regarding gameplay are quite minor, but worth mentioning nonetheless. First thing first, out of all the little changes and improvements made to the gameplay, menus, etc., why did they not think about how party members could be left out of battles if they were too far away? Persona 4 fixed this problem, so why didn't Portable? The new shuffle time is laughably delayed. When you press A to select a card in front of your screen, there's like a second delay before it registers. A second doesn't sound like a long time, but it's long enough to give you the completely wrong card, and this just gets so annoying time after time again. The next and final gameplay thing I want to mention is how Portable drops the ball with fusion skills. Remember all the praise I gave them in the last video? Yeah, well now they're items. What the hell? Who thought that this was a good idea? Not only are you taking away the real cost of using them, but you're now required to buy them outside of battle, and use whatever limited amount you have while you're in Tartarus for that night. This is horrible and completely botches the feature in my opinion. I am much less motivated to use certain personas, I am much less interested in using the skills in this capacity. This is just such a botch of the feature that removes the fun of using them to begin with. It loses the fun, the incentive, and the balancing factor. So what's even the point? Moving on from gameplay, let's quickly talk about the characters, starting with a new playable female protagonist. Persona 3 Portable adds a new protagonist for the player to choose. Now before you actually start a new save, the game tells you to choose either a male or female character. It says Makoto Yuki is the near classic experience, whereas Jane Persona is aimed at veterans of the base Persona 3. As someone that is not only a huge fan of Persona 3, but also a girly girl in real IRL, I decided to choose the female protagonist for my first playthrough of Portable. So far, I can say that this was absolutely the right move. Hell, I'd say that Persona 3 Portable in its entirety is meant for veterans of the base Persona 3. But I'll get to that in a moment. For now, I want to talk about the female protagonist and why she's awesome. For starters, the female protagonist does not change the story. The core story of Portable is still the exact same as the base games. The actual character of the protagonist is notably very different. A lot of people say that the male protagonist is boring, has no personality, etc. I say that this is completely the point. Like I said in the last video, Makoto Yuki is supposed to come across apathetic, depressed, and a piece of shit that has lost the meaning to life. The entire point of the game is to resemble the Fool's Journey, ending with Makoto finding the answer to life, ending the game with an enlightened view of the world, knowing that the day is won, his friends are safe, and that he had found happiness. That is the point of Makoto's character. The female protagonist, Jane Persona, isn't depressed. In fact, she seems quite positive and happy about her situation. Truth is, she's repressing the despair and hurt that she's bottled up. She pulls a dream reference and wears a metaphorical mask around everyone and tries to radiate positivity to inspire others. Her story is the same as Makoto's. 10 years ago, she lost her parents and has bounced around foster homes ever since. She starts the game off hurt, alone, without friends, and now in the middle of this supernatural event. She and Makoto are still both generally really good people that help their friends. But when playing as the female protagonist Portable, it's done through a different lens than in Makoto's route. It's in this light that the story is just super enjoyable for me. As someone that loves the base Persona 3 and Makoto as a character, I think the female protagonist is easily my favorite in the series. Putting aside the reason that I just relate to her a ton, it's clear that there's so much personality, even though she's still a silent protagonist. She has her own personality that really sticks out and is quite unique to all the other protags in Persona. So it's so enjoyable to steer as someone that just loves the series. And it's not just a simple protagonist swap either. The female protagonist comes with new social links. Instead of that kind of crappy link with Kenji, the Magician's Arcana is reserved for Junpei. We actually get alert about her male teammates with the female protagonist. Crazy, I know. You get a link with Akihiko, which gives him even more of a fleshed out character than before. There's a goddamn social link with Koromaru for Christ's sakes. It even keeps my personal favorite links from the male route, such as Tanaka, Maiko, and Akanari. The new additions aren't anything to scoff at either, mind you. I joke about the Koromaru one, but there's also social links with people like Shinjiro, which are some of the best in the whole series. This lineup is easily the best run of social links in any Persona game. Believe me when I say that there is not a weak link in the female protag's route. Well, Koromaru might be the worst, because he's a dog, but he gets a pass because he's a good boy. Even more, some of the links brought over from Makoto's route have reduced social stat requirements. No longer do you need to max out your courage before starting the link with Fuka. Instead, you only need it at 2nd tier. This is such a great way to get the player to try out more of the social links. By removing the absurd requirements for some of them, the player is more likely to fall into a couple and try out more of them. Balancing all of the social links is also really easy. I don't know if it's just because I'm, quote, veteran of Persona 3, but with the FMC route, it just feels so easy to juggle all of the social links at once. And now, the final thing that anyone that knows anything about Portable is just waiting to hear anyone else complain about. We need to address the botched visual presentation in this game. As I said at the beginning, some things were stripped down and removed from Persona 3 Portable. Well, as it turns out, what was removed was the overworld and the anime cutscenes. Like, losing the cutscenes is honestly whatever in my opinion, but without an overworld, every conversation that takes place becomes a visual novel with the occasional narrative text explaining what's happening, rather than being shown. This itself would be fine if it weren't for two things: the story and the world itself, and the awkward decision to record new dialogue for certain situations. Tackling the first point first, the story of Persona 3 plays off of the world and the environment to help build atmosphere. I don't know about you, but I just personally feel like seeing the events with full rendered context is a lot more effective than the sprites showing up on screen and talking. To avoid spoilers, let me explain it like this, so if you know the game, you know what I'm talking about. When insert character that another character likes is in the hospital after the September 5th operation, something happens that is entirely visual. The problem is we literally do not see it. We do not see the phenomenon occur. We're just told that it does via newly recorded lines of dialogue. Man, it'd be nice if I actually saw what happened. That way I, the player, had an understanding of what was happening, rather than being told that I should care because something might have happened. This brings me to my second point: the bizarre choice to record new lines of dialogue. While this is done to accommodate the new lines brought on by the new playable character, most lines are done to provide context for a scene. Sometimes they're completely unnecessary, other times they're fine, but the voice actors simply do not sound like what they should. It's years later on new hardware, fine, I understand. It just sounds so weird to hear the characters' voices completely change in the middle of their dialogue. Even more, they add it to completely bizarre times that don't provide context or refer to the new character. It's literally done like a second draft to flesh out the scenes, but in doing so, it's done worse. Maybe I'm just having a moment, but I swear they gave Junpei new dialogue when he spots Chidori for the first time at the station. and what he says is so bizarre to me. He doesn't stumble into her and develop feelings for her naturally, he is instead overtaken by the expressed desire to see what she's drawing.
Is that girl drawing something? Is she some kind of caricature artist? Nah, couldn't be. There's no one around her. What the heck is she drawing then? There's nothing here to draw.
Like, what the actual fuck? How does this provide context or benefit the story in any way whatsoever? I genuinely do not understand. This is what leads Persona 3 Portable to be dunked on by every Twitter user known to mankind. People believe that the visual presentation and lack of cutscenes is a sin, and thus Portable is the worst version of Persona 3. I think that the visual novel style actually quite works well for a lot of the social links. The open world part, where you actually just go from point A to point B, is perfectly fine. Like, it's not bogged down by not having a model of your protag moving. I just think that the story loses a lot of its atmosphere, and substitutes for the cutscenes aren't handled the best, and the actual important parts of the story are brought down by the addition of new lines of dialogue that, while mostly justifiable, don't match the original voice of the characters, and in some rare cases the new dialogue is completely pointless and makes no sense. Well, I think I've said all I need to about Persona 3 Portable. There really isn't anything of note I can add. As someone that loves Persona 3 FES, I think Persona 3 Portable is a fine successor that fumbles the story in some regard. As many people online will argue about which version of Persona 3 is the definitive one, I figure I'll go ahead and throw my hat into the ring and be honest about my opinion. I've played FES and Portable back to back now, and have now made a video on both. I think Persona 3 FES is the best way to experience the story of Persona 3. Hell, I think everyone would agree. I think as a total package though, regarding characters, story, gameplay, etc., Persona 3 Portable is easily the best. The core story is still the same. Despite the somewhat gimped presentation, the writing is still excellent. Having a new protag with new personality is super refreshing and really cool. The new social links are all huge improvements over the ones they replace. Well, most of them at least. The gameplay is such a massive glow up that really does Tartarus justice. This is exactly the type of dungeon crawling I want out of a video game like this, and it's so perfect and an improvement in damn near every way compared to FES. The addition of skill cards, the reduction of the RNG elements, controllable AI, all of it is such a nice step up from FES that after playing Portable like this, I have no reason to go back. I initially thought I couldn't love Persona 3 more than I already did, but as it turns out, there is a way. For these reasons, I think Persona 3 Portable is the definitive version of Persona 3, and if that statement fills you with immense rage, then I don't know, learn to accept dissenting opinions, Lamel. Anyways, that's all I have to say on the matter. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like. If you have thoughts that you feel are worth sharing, then leave a comment down below. If you're new to the channel and would like to see more, consider subscribing. I plan on doing more videos like this in the future. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Okay, bye-bye.